Suicide is a tough topic, but the Washington County Reach for Hope Suicide Prevention Coalition wants you to know that there is always hope. We are a caring community reaching out to provide compassion and hope for a community free of suicide. In the next half hour, we'll talk with community partners to identify risk factors, raise awareness, and discuss prevention strategies. Hello and welcome to Reach for Hope. I'm Melissa Anderson. Now, any of us who have lost a loved one to suicide knows the pain and difficulty in dealing with that loss. However, imagine what those who have taken their own life must have felt like. With me today is Derrik Staheli, who recently lost his brother to suicide. Welcome, Derrik, and thanks for joining us today to talk about your thoughts. First of all, sorry for your loss. I mean, that must have been difficult. Tell us about your brother Chandler, who I understand was a Marine.
Yeah. I appreciate you for letting me be on here. Chandler was a Marine. He just finished his 4-year service. He was in the 31st Marine unit. It was a special recon unit, and he loved serving his country. He loved what he did, and he just got home about 4 or 5 months ago. So.
Wow. So tell us what happened from a standpoint of when he came home and what happened from there that caused this tragedy.
You know, like they say, hindsight is always 20/20. In the moment, when he first got home, he was extremely happy. He interacted with us normally. He talked about his service, interacted with my kids. He loved hanging out with them. Towards the end, he passed away on Christmas Day, and a couple weeks before that, looking back now, I didn't really notice it then, but looking back now, I could tell that he kind of was distancing himself from the family a little bit. He always said he had to go to work constantly, and looking back, I don't think he was actually going to work as often as he said he was, but he wasn't really there present, in physically or emotionally as much the last couple weeks.
So his mindset was definitely not there. He was struggling at that point, but it was kind of hard to pinpoint that.
It was hard to pinpoint it because he was kind of the type of person who kind of kept to his own, as well as being social. It's kind of hard to explain, but so we just figured he was just busy and preoccupied with work stuff. But looking back, I think he was kind of distancing himself from the family a little bit.
And do you think he struggled prior to this time, like maybe in high school or in earlier years?
Yeah, and again, hindsight, it's one of those things. When he was 15 or 16, he ran away from home, and we thought it was just kind of he's just trying to get attention type of thing. But looking back, I truly believe he was struggling with some mental issues back then as well, and probably nearly his whole adolescent and adult life, he may have struggled with something.
So he was how old?
When he passed, he was 23.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of in those years where you're just trying to figure out who you are and where you're going, and maybe you're not in the same category as other people in their life. And he probably went straight from high school into the military.
He did. Yep. Straight from graduated high school. It was always his dream to join the military. He joined the Marine Corps and jumped right into that. And he was deployed for 4 years. He came in that 4-year period. He only visited us once. So nearly that whole 4-year period, he was gone. So
something could have happened there that we don't know about.
Yeah. He never saw combat, but he did. He tested really high in his MOS was in satellite communications. He started out as a radio operator, and he moved up to some higher position. I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head, but he had a top secret clearance. He did very well at what he did, and I don't know. Like I said, he never saw combat, but there may have been some high stress. I would assume so in that position. So.
And oftentimes we've heard this before from veterans that come back. They kind of feel like they should go back in, maybe because their place might not be here.
And that's real quick. That's exactly what he was planning on joining. So he's in the Marine Corps, and he was planning on making a career out of it and joining the Army. So he did have plans to do that. So I think you're spot on.
Right. Give us a little bit of background about your family history and where you live.
So my dad is originally from Enterprise. My mom is from St. George, and I grew up here in St. George in Washington City. I graduated high school down here, and then my family moved back up to Enterprise while I was serving a church mission. And me and my dad partnered up, started a business, and so I sold my house down here, and I moved in with him a few years ago to get money to start that business. So I actually live up in Enterprise with my parents right now while we're waiting to build a house. So.
And is that where Chandler was when he came back?
Yeah, yep. So Chandler was living there with us for the last 4 or 5 months of his life. So.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure it's been extremely difficult for your family, so I appreciate you talking and sharing as much as or as little as you'd like to share with your family to deal this. You have a wife and a child. How are you all coping with this?
So I have a wife and actually I have 3 kids. My oldest boy, Declan, and the second boy, Tatum. 7, Declan's 7, Tatum's 4. They are, it's one of those things where you don't know how to react to it unless you go through it. And it's something you never think about, obviously. But me and my wife have struggled to know how to approach this with our 2 boys, especially our oldest, because Declan is his name, and my brother Chandler, they were very close. They were kind of gaming buddies. They would play Nintendo and stuff together all the time. And Declan, actually, he's taken a lot harder than we kind of anticipated him taking it. So I don't know.
Have you done any kind of counseling, or are you just kind of just talking with him and saying,
Yeah, we haven't taken him into counseling yet, and that's something me and my wife are still talking about. I'm seeing a therapist, and I've brought that up with my therapist, and he's given me really excellent advice on how to approach him, how to approach my boy Declan. But it's hard. It's especially the way Chandler passed. Suicide isn't something that's talked about, and I disagree with that approach, and I think it should be talked about. But on the same hand, how do you tell a 7-year-old that his favorite, one of his favorite uncles, took his own life? It is a difficult position. But
and were you and your brother pretty close?
We were really close. We weren't close in age. We're 10 years apart, but we had a lot of similar hobbies and mindset and stuff like that. So.
It's always tough to go back and look at a situation, as you were talking about earlier, and think, oh, if I've only done more. But in reality, in many cases, it might not have been enough. Looking back now and then forward, what would you say to others when it comes to this?
Melissa, that is the hardest thing that I have been struggling with, and I think everyone in my family is the what ifs, the what could I have done better type of mindset. And like I said previously, looking back, it's really frustrating because there's so many unanswered questions that we'll probably never know. And there's so many scenarios that you just play over and over in your head. That one night when I saw him on the couch and he was just on his phone and I just walked to my bedroom, stuff like that. Why didn't I stop and sit down with him and say, hey, what's going on, Chandler? How was your day? Simple things like that. But you can't change the past. All you can do is, hopefully make an impact on moving forward on the future with any other people that may be experiencing the same situation, whether it's in my shoes or whether they're in Chandler's shoes and actually experiencing the mental disabilities or hardships in their head. But that's I don't know. That's the hardest part, is what could I have done differently? But
yeah,
you can't. I guess you just can't dwell on that.
It's hard to second guess.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to come forward then and share this? You came to one of the Reach for Hope coalition meetings, and you've decided to talk about this.
So a couple of reasons. If you talk to my wife, she'll tell you that, which is a good thing and a bad thing in a marriage, but I'm a problem solver. If I see an issue, I just immediately go into a robotic mode and think, okay, how can I solve this? But just a few days after Chandler's passing, I put it out on Facebook. I said, I just made a post basically stating, if anyone has any leads or connections to people that do public speaking or have connections with suicide prevention, I'd love to get involved. And one thing led to another, and Rowdy Reeve was a suggested person, and me and him are kind of in a similar business where he had the gun range. I sell guns in my business as well, and me and him talked quite a bit, and he suggested going to the Reach for Hope meeting. but I just want to, I'm not an expert in this field, but I do feel like it's kind of my duty or obligation to reach out to people and potentially help any way I can to hopefully prevent another suicide, or to help those that have gone through this and just grieve with them. It's kind of, I just feel like it's an obligation I have going through what we did. So,
And it's a good way for you to deal with that too.
absolutely.
I bet.
Yeah. It's, I tell everyone that asks me questions when they're a little hesitant, do you mind if I ask you this? I'm an open book. I think it's very important to get rid of the taboo mindset of suicide. It's nothing to be ashamed about. It's nothing you can shy away from if you want to make any change or difference.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, is what would you like to see done differently in our society when it comes to mental health or suicide prevention, if anything?
Definitely talk about it. Talk about it. Even if your family seems perfect and you're assuming there's no problems going on, you can't think like that. I would encourage any parents to sit down with their children, no matter how old, and just ask them with a brutally honest approach, how are you doing? What's going on? What hardships are you facing right now in your life? How can we help? Almost like a one-on-one counseling session, or whatever you want to call it, with your children, and just go over all the aspects of their life and see what's going on in their head, because that's the hardest part. Chandler was, like I mentioned a few minutes earlier, he was kind of outgoing and open, but he was such a closed book with his thoughts and his feelings and his emotions that we always assumed he was happy. But no, I don't think any one of us sat down with him and said, "Hey, Chandler, what's going on in your life?" So I think it's very important to just be open about it.
Yeah, and don't be so much in your head, or ask them questions, because you never know what's going on inside of someone who's closed off like that.
Yep.
What are you or will you do differently in the future then as a result of Chandler's death, if anything?
Well, with my own family, like I said, I'm going to talk about everything. I don't think there's any one subject that should be off limits with your kids, not one, whether it be, sexual orientation, sex ed, pornography, drug addiction, stresses, anything. That should all be laid out on the table, and there shouldn't be any topic that's off limits in your family. And that should go with your close friends or with anyone if you want to take it to the next level.
How can others help then with this? Is there anything that we can do to support a family who has had a recent loss? We can grieve with you, and I've seen posts on social media and things, but does this help?
For our family, I can't speak for everyone's family that has gone through a similar situation, but for our family, what we have, or I'm speaking for myself, but I would assume the rest of my siblings and parents would agree, is physical visit. Reaching out on the phone's good. Reaching out on social media, like I said, is good. But we've had so many people come over, visit, talk about it. And for me, like I said, I can't speak for everyone in my family, but for me, it's very, very helpful to talk about it, and talk about Chandler, talk about the details as much as we feel comfortable sharing. But it's very healthy for me to talk about what happened and just have friends that come over and visit and be there.
I imagine it's going to be tough because he did pass away on Christmas Day. To go through this next Christmas, what are you doing in preparation of that? And have you put up maybe a memorial or something to remember him by, or have you thought about what you're going to do to make this something that is not considered a sin, so to speak, and taboo, versus someone who was struggling? I mean, a lot of times people will go, "Oh, we don't want to recognize this," but as close as you were to your brother, I'm sure you're feeling, like I want to do something and I want to remember him for the good that he did do. I mean, especially when it comes to your son.
Yeah. So being in Southern Utah, we know there's a heavy church culture, and I know there have been some previous things said by church members and leaders that, like you said, it's a sin if you take your own life, and I disagree with that. I don't care what anyone tells me. Chandler was going through things, and I think every single suicide victim goes through things that are out of their control. They're not in their right mindset. And him passing away on Christmas, some of my family members said that it's going to be very difficult, and why did it have to happen on this day? You know, not questioning Chandler, but just questioning God and the universe. Why did it happen on Christmas?
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, I think trying to turn that from a negative to a positive, I think it's going to be more of a special day for us to remember God and Christ and Chandler and all these things connected to each other. I think the best thing we can do is just remember and keep in mind that he wasn't in his right mindset. He's in a happier place, and unfortunately, we weren't able to change that. But if we just try and focus on the positives, I think that's all we can do at this moment. So,
and move forward in the memories that were good, and celebrate his life and not his death. Correct? I mean,
correct.
A lot of time that's hard to do, especially in looking back and going to a funeral and realizing that this is it. You're not going to see him again, but knowing that someday you will see him again, correct? I mean,
correct.
A lot of people might not think that far ahead, but it's something that you're probably been thinking about.
It's hard. You know, I talked to my therapist. I've had moments where absolute hell has taken over my life, and I was so angry and you know, if I'm being completely honest, mad at Chandler. Why didn't he just reach out to me and talk to me? Mad at God, mad at the universe. But if you let those emotions and feelings take over, it's not going to do you any good, and it's not going to change anything. So you're going to just have to turn it into a positive and remember the good times.
We do offer help at Reach for Hope to help people ask those questions, to question, how are you feeling? What are you doing? Are you thinking about taking your own life? What can we do to help? And if they are struggling with that, to refer them, persuade them to go get help and refer them to that help. Do you think that would have made a difference if things like that happen in life? I mean, we need to it's hard to ask that question.
It is. Yep, it is. And I don't blame Chandler because probably because of the culture of our society is, and especially a Marine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's been raised in the Marines the last 4 years to think, I can do this. I'm a man. I've got this. I'm a soldier. I don't need help. I'm not going to ask for help. And so I have more sympathy for ex-Marines and ex-soldiers who have gone through that and who are going through hell in their mind, because I don't want to say they were brainwashed, but they kind of were in a sense,
mm-hmm.
To think that way. And so, yeah, I think that would be extremely beneficial to have something set up like that to where there is help and they know there's help.
Yeah, and to not and for your family not to feel that guilt because, in all honesty, you didn't really know what he was going through. And that's why I brought that up earlier, is that we don't know what someone's mind is going through, if they're struggling or what. That's why it's important to think about that on occasion and just go, that person just might not seem a little bit right now. Maybe even if it's a stranger, to just reach out.
Oh, it's made a huge impact on my life with strangers. If you're at a grocery store and you can tell someone's just having a bad day, smile at them. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't notice, or you don't see people smiling at anyone anymore. I think everyone's just on autopilot and go in, get your groceries, go out, but say hi, talk to people. And I think that can make a huge difference. Just something as simple as that. Yeah.
And the other thing is the stigma that we're trying to break. Oftentimes we think that, if we're in that state of mind, we might be the only ones thinking that. But I'll bet you 10 to 1, most people have thought about suicide at one time or another, whether you're going through that stress or that strain in your life. And it's just a matter of how you deal with that and how you go forward with that. And if there's drugs or alcohol or anything like that involved, you're not thinking straight. And you said right there that you thought that your brother wasn't thinking straight at the time. Had he been with someone, maybe he wouldn't have taken his own life.
Yep. Yep. I think I would dare say 99% of people have that thought of suicide go through their head at some point in their life. Some more serious than others. Some maybe the thought just crossed their mind for a second and they dismissed it. But yep, everyone definitely has stresses in their life and crappy times, and they feel like there's no way they can go up from there. But yep, everyone needs that help in their life at some point in their life.
Everyone needs someone.
Yep, everyone
That's
needs
the
someone.
thing. When you're alone and you feel like you're alone, that's not a good feeling to have. So
Yep.
Isolation is a tough thing too. And we've been in isolation with the pandemic and things too. So it's really been difficult with that. What kind of advice or what kind of things would you like to say moving forward to other families who may have been struggling, or to your own family as far as how to move forward into this next step? And they say that suicide affects at least 7 generations down the road, and that is not a good thing to think about. It sounds like you've got your own family on track, but it's got to be continued on.
It's interesting because me and my dad just had a conversation probably 6 months ago about how fortunate we were with a family of 15 people, 13 kids, how we haven't lost anyone yet. And when you have a family or when things are going perfect, you don't think, you just take things for granted. So I would, moving forward from this time forward, I'm going to tell people not to take advantage of the good times and to always constantly check in on those you love and those you don't love. Like we talked about, help your strangers or your neighbors that you don't know very well. We're all human. We're all in this together. We're all in this thing called life. We're all going to go through hard times. None of us are going to make it out alive. We're all going to pass away, but that doesn't mean that we can't help each other and that we can't check in on each other. And, it's kind of a domino effect of the stigma and the tabooness of suicide, because right after Chandler's death, one of my good friends said, "Hey, you should go see my therapist that I see," and I said, "No, I'm not going to see a therapist. I don't need a therapist." And it's been the best thing I've ever done. Best advice I've ever received has been from my therapist. So if you have gone through this, go see a therapist, go to counseling, reach out to some of these great organizations like the Reach for Hope Coalition and get involved. It's not gonna hurt anything to do all these good things. It's only going to do good. So
yeah, obviously it's done great for your family. So what would you say if you could talk to Chandler in person? What could you share with him even after this fact that this has all happened? If you had something that you'd say to him, what would it be?
Oh, geez.
That's a tough question. I know I kind of sprung that one on you, but to think about him and his frame of mind, we don't know what they're thinking right before. But if you could tell him right now, if you could talk to him, what would you say to him?
I would say that we all love him and that we forgive him. And there's no need for forgiveness. Actually, we're just happy that he is in a better place, and we didn't understand everything he went through, but he was a good kid. He had a heart of gold, and he was going through things that none of us understood. And I think we, at some degree or another, we all have those things going on in our lives. But we miss him. We do miss him. He's definitely going to be missed. And I feel so bad that he went through those last few days alone without reaching out to us. And I wish we could have changed that, but
we can only move forward from here. And I think he knows that, and he's probably feeling that right now. I
Absolutely.
mean, he knows how much you love him.
100%.
That's what brotherly love's all about, right?
Yep. Yep.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining us today, Derrik, and wish your family well.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing and dealing with your loss. That's a pretty brave thing to do, and I commend you for that, and I ask that I'm going to send some prayers up for you and your family, and that you have closure with this, because we've got to keep this topic alive as much as we can so that we can save more lives.
I agree.
Yeah,
thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks for all you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for coming to our meetings and sharing with the audience here today as well. So
absolutely
appreciate it. All right. And like he said, don't be afraid to reach out, look for help for counseling, persuade others to seek that help and refer them to that help, because if we could just, even save one life, I think that we're looking for, to help a lot of people out there. That's what we're here for. So thanks again for watching, and remember, there's always hope. Thanks for watching, and thank you again, Derrik, for sharing. It's been wonderful to have you here.
Anytime.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. The Reach for Hope Coalition wants you to know that we care about you and we are here to help. If you or someone you know is thinking about suicide, reach out. You're not alone. To access resources for yourself or others, visit our webpage at reachforhopeutah.org. That's reach4hopeutah.org. If you are experiencing a crisis, please call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK, because you matter and there is always hope.
This has been a production from a podcast studio.